Hello and welcome back to another video. Today going to be talking about the controversial topic of houses, or rather lack of houses, in the upcoming highly anticipated Test Drive Unlimited Solar Crown title. So, on my first read of this month's newsletter, which is the third one they've given to us, I thought, given that the Solar Hotel was the main theme of that newsletter, that houses being added was becoming increasingly unlikely, especially with how some of the letter was worded, talking about all outings starting from the hotel and such. However, I appear to be entirely blind and somehow missed a particularly interesting paragraph right at the end of the notes from creative director Alain Jarnoux, which I have to thank Real Strategy Gaming for pointing me in the direction of in the comments of that previous video. Anyway, Alain says, we added this fantastic place and its rooms to enhance the accommodation concept in the TDU series. Fans of the franchise will remember the houses in TDU 2, where you could extend your garage, but it was a very personal experience. Even though you could invite your friends, you must first make those friends, and this is the objective with the Solar Hotel. We know that houses made an impression on TDU players. While this feature is not in the game when TDUSC launches, it is part of a long list of features we have already researched for future content in the medium and long term. So he's basically saying houses will not be in the game at launch, but there is a possibility of them coming quite a long way down the line via an update or paid DLC. So let's break this whole statement down a bit. Firstly, of course, having also worked on the previous titles, Alain, of course, understands the importance of houses and how fans of the previous games find it such an important feature that they really wanted to return, which is probably why there's so much uproar about it not being there at launch. He even says that he knows the impression it left on us from previous games. And yes, the houses in TDU2 were a huge part of that supercar lifestyle feeling, and were super personal with customizable interiors where you could change your furnishings and such, and the ability to arrange and showcase our car collections in the adjoining garages. It truly did make that game feel special and different to all the other competitors out there at the time. But is not having houses at launch really that bad? Yes, it was a huge part of that game, and whilst of course it is a shame not to have such a huge part of what made the previous TDU games great be there at launch, I'm not sure it's quite so bad. Partly having seen the hotel in this latest newsletter, both inside and outside, it looks absolutely incredible. The rooms, which are more like huge penthouse apartments, are almost like the houses of the old games anyway, in terms of luxuriousness and probably size as well. They're vast, vast spaces in there. Although a few features aren't confirmed, like interior customization is not confirmed, and having adjoining garages in some of the apartments is also not confirmed, there's nothing to explicitly say that won't happen, so we could always hope, right? Even if it is maybe unlikely. Anyway, as well as the hotel looking so far like a pretty decent replacement for the houses, another reason was also explained. Alain kind of says that it's all about the social aspect and the lobby that you have to exit through along with all the other players, with a chance to meet fellow like-minded test drive players, or equally make rivalries with not so like-minded players, for example. The point is that it's a communal hub for you to meet people both in the lobby and in the hotel area, with the surrounding roads they've created specifically to kind of encourage that. You may argue upgrading the houses was a good bit of progression within the game as well, but they've kind of covered that too. You start with a basic room and work your way up, both in room type but also literally. Eventually, I presume, being given the penthouse at the very top of the building, which is the one I kind of imagine might even have somewhere you can showcase some of your cars. You may remember that very first trailer they put out, probably nearly 3 years ago now, that showcased some cars in a sort of garage environment with a view out of that window. Now, this is completely unconfirmed, this is completely speculative at this point, but potentially that was a garage from inside an apartment, so maybe that top penthouse one does have that feature. We'll wait and see. Now, interestingly, so far all they have said is that there are no houses at launch, not no houses full stop. So there is a potential, like I said earlier, for them to be added in an update or paid DLC somewhere further down the line. In fact, Alan also, of course, stated, if we go back to what he said, that houses were on a long list of features they hope to bring in updates because of how important the developers know this feature was to us test drive fans. This is, however, in the medium to long term, whenever that is. I would guess medium means months rather than years after launch, but long term means over a year after the game's release, which I think is probably a more likely time frame if we're to expect these to come at all. So don't expect anything soon, or even at all. Like they said, they've researched this area, not that it's a sure thing that they're coming to the game. But that is something. I think there is a good possibility that a year or so after release, houses could be added, but like I say, nothing is confirmed. Particularly though, as they say that the hotel is there to ensure that the competition runs smoothly in the first year, which could be a subtle hint at something. They're certainly saying that it's not out of the question, and that Radiant, the organisation behind the competition, are thinking of exploring investment projects for future years. So yeah, potentially they're hinting at content being added later down the line, and that houses are not completely out of the question. So I do think houses are quite likely, just not anytime soon after launch. So don't expect them to be added for definite, and if they are going to be, I think it's going to be at least a year down the line. So, yes, it is a shame that there are no houses at launch. I'm sure it disappointed many, many people. Well, you can tell by the kind of uproar online after this was announced. However, I do understand why they have taken this decision, and I think the Solo Hotel will serve the same purpose, and in many ways works better, as it brings all the players together in one location, and means you always start in a nice central place, basically. And even if it doesn't quite have the same feeling as the houses, there's still a high chance that those will be added further down the line, like I say. Just don't expect them, at least in the first year, is what I would kind of estimate. Which, if that means that they take more time over those properties, making them truly special if they are finally added, I'm all for that. I don't want them to rush a feature just to add it in, because loads of people have said they want that. I would rather they put out a fully polished game, so that what they have made is to the best it can be, and then if they're going to add something like that, put more time into it and add it later, and then we can enjoy the addition of that as a whole new thing a bit further down the line, because once it's out, let's be honest, it's going to be a while before there's another one. Hopefully not as long as since TDU2, but anyway. But yeah. I hope they do get added down the line, I just hope they don't rush them, and if that means they're better when they do come, if they do, then yeah, I'm all for that. Do as ever though, let me know your thoughts on the topic of houses in this upcoming title. Do you think they should have been in there at launch, or do you understand why that's not necessarily possible? And do you think it is likely they'll come later down the line? Let me know what you think, but for now, thank you very much for watching, and I'll be back with the next video very soon.